My name is John Massey. I am the kitchen manager here at Heart Village, and today we will be making a sweet potato gnocchi. So like I said, we still don't really want to bake these, plus that takes a lot longer. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to dice them up and we'll boil them for about 10-15 minutes on the outdoor kitchen stove. Get them nice and soft so that we can use them as a base for a pasta. Now we can go ahead and get this filled with water so we can boil it. Alright, and if you want to follow me outside, we'll go ahead and get this going. Alright, so first thing to do, you got to start a fire. Alright, for those of you unfamiliar with starting a fire, it's really not hard. You take whatever it is you're lighting with, if you're working with flint and steel, matches, lighter, whatever you have, and you take this. And this is a nice tinder. We have lots of pines and lots of oaks around here, so we use that as tinder. And basically, this will light real quick, get us a nice warm fire going, and then we'll start adding little sticks and little stuff like that. So this is called a rocket stove. Basically, if you get up here real close, you can see that there's an L-shaped flue in here. So we'll build the fire right here. There's an induction network right here to bring in a bunch of air, and then a chimney where all the heat is going to come out and it's going to provide a nice air current stream. So basically, we want to pretty much stuff this full to get it started. So once you've got a little bit of a fire going in there, start small diameter sticks. I like to use bamboo to start. It burns quicker, burns hotter, gets me a good base. What you're trying to do is build a nice coal bed under there that the airflow can come and pick up all that heat and continue to make this fire burn. You can see once you get a fire started in this thing, it does burn very clean, very smokeless. As you can see, it's just a flame. There's no smoke. It's a lot like your gas stove, just about as efficient, except it burns wood. So now that we've got this actually started, we can start trying to boil some potatoes. So here's the potatoes we had just cut up. It will take a little bit longer, just by the nature of this, but we can get it burning pretty hot. So this is a rocket stove. As you can see, it has an L-shaped flue in it, surrounded by insulation. So just as a demonstration, this is one that I built for a different oven over here, and basically you have your chamber to build the fire. This sits on top, and then you have a chamber for air to come through and helps facilitate all the fire to go faster, stronger, and smokeless. As soon as you can pierce these with a fork very easily, they are done. You can go ahead and remove them, drain them, and put them in the food processor. Drain it. It's hot, so be careful. Once drained, we can take it over to our food processor. So what your goal is to make this a nice like paste almost, to make it as a starchy base for your pasta. If it gets to this point and it's not wanting to move, my suggestion is to add some form of liquid. It's up to you. I would either use water, or if you happen to have it, whey. And this is just byproduct from the last time I made cheese, which was yesterday. once you have your sweet potato done, it becomes a very simple matter of making some dough. And for a general gnocchi, you're gonna have flour, ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, salt, and depending on the recipe, eggs. I'm gonna put one in here as a binder just because sweet potato has a little less starch than regular potato. To your sweet potato, you're gonna add about 3 3/4 cup of flour, assuming you're using 3 pounds of sweet potato. Generally, you're gonna do about a cup per pound and then a little extra on top of it. And this helps bind it, and once you boil this again, we'll turn it into that nice chewy pasta texture rather than, you know, the texture that we've got right now, which is mashed sweet potatoes. So do that. You want about 4.5 teaspoons of salt. Again, this is about a teaspoon for every pound of sweet potato you use, plus a little extra. And this is just to taste, so change it depending on what salt you're using. I'm using a really high salinity iodized salt, which means I'm actually going to add a little less than the 4 teaspoons. I'm going to use about 3.5. Otherwise, it'll end up really, really salty. And then normally you'd use ricotta cheese. I don't have ricotta cheese, but I do have some queso blanco, which is a similar texture and taste, a very mild crumbled cheese. We're gonna use about 3 cups of this. I have a pound here of the cheese, so I'm gonna just add about half a pound. It's not quite 3 cups, but it'll work out just fine with the way we're gonna do this. Something important for gnocchi is Parmesan cheese. Normally I would recommend using a block of Parmesan cheese. We don't have that, nor do we really have the money to do a block of Parmesan cheese, and I don't have a year to make it. So shaking is fine. Really, this is just gonna add to the taste, change the texture up just a little bit. And you want lots of Parmesan cheese. Like if you've got a block of Parmesan cheese, you're gonna use like half a block in here. You know, probably a cup of parm. Again, I'm changing that up a little bit just for the ingredients we have. And then the recipe doesn't call for it, but because sweet potato has a little less starch than regular potato, I want a binder in here. So this is one of our eggs from the farm. Just gonna crack that in there. And then we just get to mix it up with the big whisk. And then if it feels like it's not doughy enough, like if it feels too dry, you can always add more liquid. Again, I'd recommend milk, water, or in my case, I'm using whey. But it should come together pretty easily. Sweet potato has a lot of moisture in it, and especially since we added moisture while we were blitzing it, this should come together actually very well. So as you can see, this is still pretty loose, pretty wet, so really what we need to do is add more flour. And we're actually going to do that right now, but we're also going to have to knead it. The consistency we're going for is like a really loose bread dough. So if you've ever worked with bread, that's sort of what we're going for. If not, you're looking for a dough that's not sticking to your hands or the table anymore, but wants to stick to itself. And we're gonna make sure that it has a lot of gluten in it. Pasta is basically all gluten. Just fold it in on each other and on itself, adding flour until it stops being so sticky. So as you can see, compared to the beginning, this is much more like a dough rather than just a loose amalgamation of sweet potato. So you're going to continue to knead this for about 20 minutes. building up a lot of gluten along the way. You want it to be nice and chewy as a finished product, and the gluten is going to help with that. So once your dough gets to be about like this, a nice supple, soft dough, doesn't have to be super stretchy. It's not going to be as gluten-y as a bread. Unfortunately, that's just the way sweet potato goes. But you've activated all the flour you can. And now we're going to shape it into a ball. And cut it. Because now we're going to go ahead and make our gnocchi from the dough. You're going to want to dust everything with flour again. As much as we've added flour, it's still going to be a nice sticky dough. So we'll divide. At home with just 1 pound, you'll probably want to divide this at least in half. I'm going to divide this into at least quarters. Otherwise, we're not going to have enough room to do anything. So from this quarter, we're going to roll it out like a jelly roll. If you think about, you know, when you were a little kid playing with Play-Doh, you're going to make a snake. All right? And if it gets too long for your work surface, feel free to cut it in half, cut it in quarters, doesn't really matter. And we're going for 1 inch in diameter. So I'm actually going to cut this in half again. Once you have it to be about 1 inch in diameter the whole way around, we can start cutting. You can use a knife, a bench scraper, whatever you have handy. And you're gonna basically make 1/2 inch pillow shapes. They come off real simple. So if you just want a quick gnocchi, you can boil those up like that and they're done. However, if you want to take one more step, you can shape these. It's pretty straightforward. You just take your gnocchi, and they have to be fairly small, so some of these I'll probably cut in half again. You want to press it onto the tines of a fork, and roll it up like that until you have almost like a crescent shape with little grooves in it. I wouldn't suggest doing this for the serving size I have, but if you're just doing it at home and you're rolling out 30 or 40, it's only an extra 15 minutes of work for impressing people. So you see that last one was probably a little big, so it's got little ends on it, but that's okay. All right, so once you have these shaped up, you can go ahead and toss them in your boiling water. I would recommend always salting your water when you're doing pasta. It helps season the pasta inside and out. You don't lose any flavor in the water if you do it that way. All right, so as soon as you're done shaping all of your gnocchi into these little slotted deals, we'll go ahead and take them gently. We'll toss them in a vat of boiling water, where they will stay for about 5 minutes, just enough to let them firm up. Fresh pasta always takes a lot less time than dried pasta, so anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes is going to be pretty ideal for this. So, gnocchi will extend by about twice, and you should know they're done. They'll be lighter in color. It'll be a nice bouncy texture. I usually like to make a brown butter sauce for them, but they are